Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Thanks so much for being with us. I can't thank you enough. It's always an extraordinary opportunity to not only bring these programs, these conversations, these topics, and guests to you, but it is, as I have said many times on this program, it's my therapy, so that I can maybe be a better, more well-rounded individual. And today is no exception. Just a reminder that this program, you can hear this program Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for our special edition of Tell Me Your Story, and then Monday through Friday at 8 a.m., all following the news here on this station. Podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, many other locations, and we're on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. We hope you will subscribe as well as select a notification so that when I put up a new conversation, you'll be able to tap in and listen in. I hope you'll do that. I'm not as interested in the numbers as I am in you and others hearing the conversation and getting what you can, gleaning from it. That is really the most important thing. If the odometer was still at 0, I know people are listening because from time to time, believe it, I get phone calls. On occasion, I will get a phone call from somebody who will say, "Hey, I heard your program," and so forth and so forth. So I just want people to hear the programs. We would ask that if you can support the work we are doing financially. Gratefully appreciative to those who have and those who will. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. And when you go there and they ask you, who are you sending this to? Email address is required. Well, use richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. One final thing. This is the decade of perfect vision, where we ask you to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. We hope that you'll take time to do that. I have to be honest with you that I try as often as I can, but I am always listening. Whether I hear my sister's voice since she has passed on, whether I get the impressions from my father, who has also passed on, or I hear the still small voice of my friend. My friend is, I'll just, it's connected to the divine. That's the still small voice for me. And that's how I refer to that voice, as my friend. And my friend has been there guiding me, trying to in the early days, and I wouldn't listen. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, we're going to talk about a subject that our guest has written another book. Why do I say another? Because this man has. I am just reaching book number 1. Hopefully in September it will be released. I'm editing it now. I'm actively. This is not. Okay, here's the date I'm planning, because I've done this 5 or 6 times in the last 10 years. I've had enough of that. It's time to make it happen. This is, he's the author of 24 books, including this, his newest, The 7-Figure Expert, your ultimate, that's right, expert, your ultimate guide to a life of more impact. We're going to talk about that along with influence and financial freedom. And believe it or not, folks, there's a free copy available. We'll tell you about that as we get into this with our very special guest, Noah St. John. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Richard. It's great to be back here with you.
It is indeed. I remember our conversation of not long ago, actually, but I'm excited to talk with you about book number 24. I do not feel any sense of I need to hurry up and get my book out because you've got 24 and I've got to work on the other 23 to catch up to you. It doesn't work that way. They come when they come. And just like with you're prolific, and that's just the magic in your life. And we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit. Give us a little background for those who haven't heard the first interview. And of course, I'm sure that you'd be able to listen to that one through SoundCloud and all of the other locations I mentioned. But give us a little background on Noah St. John and how you got started and what you're up to these days.
Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And, the reason that I'm here, it all started very organically. And the reason that I say that is because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. And I know that's a total cliche, but it's totally true. Because I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which is one of the wealthiest communities in New England. In
Hmm.
fact, in the whole country. But my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally because we lived at the bottom of a dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house that my parents ended up losing to foreclosure when I was just 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
So if you've ever been through a foreclosure or maybe know someone who has, it's a very traumatic experience for that family or those individuals. And it certainly was for us. So from a very young age, I was painfully exposed to the gap, the chasm between the haves and the have-nots. Now, the haves was everyone else in the community, but the have-nots was my family. And so I remember, like as an example, one Christmas, because I'm the middle child. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and it was Christmas time, and of course, we opened our gifts, and then we went over to a friend's house, and saw what they had, and then when we got home, my older brother, he said to my parents, "How come Santa brought so many more presents to them than us?" Wow. I mean, was that a knife through their heart, I'm sure, and I was really kind of too young to like get that, but
Hmm.
I remember that it happened and it was like one of those weird situations. So the point is that's how I grew up. And the funny thing is about that is, when I got to a certain age, I really noticed that I hated being poor. I just hated it. There's a lot of motivational speakers out there, and they'll get on stage and they'll say something like this. They'll say, well, we were poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Well, I'll tell you what, in my family, we freaking knew we were poor. Because my mother, bless her heart, reminded us, pretty much every day that we were poor and miserable. And, it wasn't happy. It sucked. It was just not a happy childhood. So, from the time I was very young, I was just constantly asking the question, how can I get from here to there? Meaning, from poverty to wealth. And of course, I really didn't know how to answer that question. I mean, I was only a kid, but and then there was no internet back then, or all the things we have today. But I did the only thing that I could think of to do, which was I went to the library and I just read every book in the self-help section. I just went to the self-help section because I said, if I'm going to make something of myself, if I'm going to not be poor, I got to figure out, what the heck does that mean and how do I do it? So I just read every book in the self-help section, all the classics, right, of self-help, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, all the classics, right? And I just immersed myself in that literature.
Hmm.
I did that for years. And then, I really kept trying to make it work. And as I got into the, work world, I got, these, as I call them, survival jobs, because that's all I was doing was just surviving. And it was really frustrating because I was reading all these books, spending all this time and effort, and it just really I wasn't seeing any results. And so at the age of 25, I was living in Los Angeles and my girlfriend had just left me. I'd lost my job and, I couldn't pay the bills. I mean, it was like a country song, but, but it was true. I mean, it was really happening to me. And so, at the age of 25, I was so frustrated and depressed. I decided that I was going to take my own life. I decided to commit suicide at the age of 25. Now, at the very last moment, my life was spared. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why my life was spared in that moment, but I realized that there must be a reason for that. There must be a purpose, but I don't know what it is, right? And so at that time, I was 25 and I said, I don't know why I'm here. What am I doing on this planet? What is my purpose on the earth? And I didn't know how to answer that question. So guess what I did? I went back to the library. And this time I read every book in the spiritual section. I went to the spiritual section to find out what is my purpose on the earth. And I read every book by all the spiritual thinkers of our time, Ernest Holmes, Marianne Williamson, Neil Donald Walsh, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra, and spiritual thinkers like that. Now, fast forward another 5 years. In 1997, I was living in this 300 square foot basement apartment in Hadley, Massachusetts, and I'd been reading all these other books, all these spiritual books and all these success books for all those years. And one day it just happened, and I had these epiphanies, and I realized exactly what was missing in all those books and all that literature that I'd spent all that time reading. And I realized, wow, this is my purpose. This is why I'm here, because no one was talking about it. And I knew because I'd read every book, right? And I said, oh my gosh, this is what they missed. This is what they didn't tell us. And this is, in fact, the missing piece for me. And I knew that if it was missing for me, it had to be missing for others. Because as Emerson said, what is most personal is most universal. So I knew I couldn't be the only one. And so I decided to actually write my first book. And I entitled it Permission to Succeed, because I realized that the missing piece for me and I knew it was millions of others, was that not that we needed more how-tos of success, but we had to give ourselves permission to succeed in the first place. And no one was talking about that. So I self-published my book. And this was years, by the way, years before, Kindle Direct Publishing and all these things that make it so easy to self-publish a book these days. There was none of that back then in the 90s. Remember that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I literally had to go to a local copy shop, just a print shop down the street. And I said, I want to print this book. I literally just, wrote it up on my Apple computer. And I said, I want to print this book. How do you do that? And so they said, well, you can do this, this, this. And I said, okay, well, what's the cheapest way? Because I got no money, right? and they said, well, you can do it. It's called tape bound. I said, what's that? They said, well, it's bound with a piece of tape bound. I said, oh, okay, let's do that, because that's the cheapest way they had. So I literally printed the world's ugliest book, called it Permission to Succeed, self-published it. I printed like 100 copies because that's all the money I had. And then I just drove around and I went to these local bookstores, and that's when local bookstores still existed. And I said, hey, you want to carry this book? And most of them said no, and some said yes. And so I started doing, talks and appearances and things like that, talking about my book. And then, as luck would have it, I actually met Jack Canfield, who from the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And I met him at an event. I showed him my self-published book, the ugliest book you've ever seen. And I showed it to him. Now, by that time, I already had quite a few testimonials from people who had read it and loved it. And it literally changed their lives. Just that ugly little book. And I showed it to him, and he got it right away. He was so gracious and so great. And he said, yeah, this looks really good. I'm going to send this to my publisher. And sure enough, he was good to his word. And 8 weeks later, I got a call from the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. They offered me my first publishing contract. And that's how my very first book came out in 1999. You can see it right here behind me, called Permission to Succeed. And now 25 books later, I'm actually the only author in history that's had works published by Hay House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Mind Valley, Nightingale Conant, and the Chicken Soup for the Soul publisher. Nobody else in history has ever done that. I'm the only one. And, I have all these books, as well as, I feel it's even more important for people to realize and know that I've helped my clients in the interim, these last 27 years, to add over $3 billion using my methods, meaning we've helped entrepreneurs, experts, speakers, coaches, authors, podcasters, chiropractors, network marketers, real estate professionals, nurses, everything. Pretty much any industry you can think of, to add 6 figures, 7 figures, and even 8 figures using my methods and my coaching. So that's how it started. That's how I got here. And, that's why we're here.
And then there's the rest of this. That's the rest of the story. Two things. Number one is then Steve Martin is incorrect when he said back in the 70s on his comedy album, which I still have, that he talked about how he was going to write a book. He said he had written a book on how to be a millionaire.
Yep.
Step
How to
one,
Make $1 Million and Not Pay Taxes.
and
That's
not
the
pay
name of the book.
taxes. Step
That's the
one.
name of the book. I remember it well.
Yeah, get $1 million.
First, make $1 million. Then don't pay your taxes.
That's right.
And when the IRS comes, say, I forgot.
I
There you go.
forgot
That's
it
it.
was against the law.
Love it. Yes. Please don't do that. All right. Don't do that. Steve Martin
Oh
said
man, I tell you that that takes me
love that
back.
note.
The
I
other
remember
thing that
that.
also takes me back, and you may remember this author,
Mhm.
actually was more than just an author. He was referred to back in possibly the late 60s, early 70s. I was introduced to him through my parents, and he was known as the Love Doctor, Dr. Leo Buscaglia.
Yes. He
And
actually spoke at my high school. When I graduated high school, he was actually the keynote speaker.
Yeah, well,
So
I'll
I know
tell you.
him very well. I was a salutatorian. So yeah, I got to introduce Leo Buscaglia.
Oh, great. Well,
Yep.
I know he's since passed on, but I still have that cassette series at home
Mhm.
on Love. And
Yeah, he was
he was so wonderful just to listen to. I didn't
Yes.
care what he was talking about. You know, he could be talking about how to construct a nuclear power plant for all that mattered. It was just wonderful to listen to him, the way he spoke and the stories that he told.
Yes.
But that's one of the aspects, and I find it fascinating how huge, and they refer to them now today as audibles. Okay.
Mhm.
And I would venture that the majority of your books, I would like to think, are audibles.
Mhm.
However, that's not what they were called, because when you were talking about the publishing companies and the books that you read, the first thing that came to mind for me was the audiobook subscription I was a part of called, and you may remember this one too. Boy, talk about dating myself. But then I'm 64, so what? Nightingale Conant.
Yes.
And I would get different books every so
Yes.
often, and it was fascinating. I have read some of the authors you talked about, but also not only Leo Buscaglia, but Love is Letting Go of Fear
Right.
by Gerald Jampolsky.
Yep.
I've read several books, and most of these books I read to my first wife, who was totally blind. Ram Dass, and many of his books
Yep.
as well. And I mean, and the list just goes on and on and on, and it's just amazing. I find it fascinating. I was listening to a George Carlton bit the other day about self-help.
Mhm.
And his comment, he says, people go into the library or the bookstore and they go to the self-help section. Well, there's something wrong with that phrase, self-help. Why are you getting a book written by someone else if it's self-help?
Right.
All right. And be that as it may, even though it may be sort of an irony, I think it's more of an irony than anything else. A lot of these books, and one in particular that really not only turned my life around in one sense, though I had been reading autobiography of a yogi since I was 17.
Mhm.
My dear friend, who has since passed, he was my best friend through grade school, high school, and college. I make reference to him at the end of every program. And he'd been working in he'd worked for Barnes and Noble, he worked for Walden Books, and so forth. He actually worked at the Phoenix College bookstore. That was the junior college that he and I both went to.
Mhm.
Another story for another time. But anyway, November of 1982, because I was going through a low period in my life. He gave me a copy of a book by the author Og Mandino, who years later I had the great privilege of interviewing. Greatest Miracle in the World. And I read it. I was working for a radio reading service that did basically what Audible does today. And they aired it on the week of Christmas that year, with the final part 4, that I had recorded, airing on Christmas Eve. And that's when my life turned around, because a young gal heard it, wanted a copy of it. And I thought, well, I'll deliver it. I bicycle everywhere. So what the heck, So I made a cassette copy of it. And the next thing you know, about 6 months later, she and I were married.
Wow.
And it set me on the course that I have been on ever since. Sadly, we ended up divorcing at the end of the last century, which kind of sounds kind of weird, last century. Anyway, and I have been speaking with people such as yourself, and in your case, We're talking with, pardon me, Dr. Noah St. John about the seven-figure expert. And by the way, this is your third appearance on this program. And actually, it was about a year ago this month that I had you on the first time.
Yep.
And it's just really extraordinary how far we both have come in terms of not only observing what's going on around us, okay, which I would have to say, you'd probably agree, 99.9% of it, nothing we can do about it. We don't have any control over it. Even if we do have that 1% that we have control over it, maybe, but also how our lives have shifted and changed. The station that I work for was sold at the end of 23. And now I'm working for a corporation that owns 47 other radio stations. And right now, and I'm not trying to diss the corporation because it's not really them, it's the landlords of the building we're in. I'm doing this interview with you right now, and in this room, it's 80 degrees. And there's no cooling. And a fan doesn't help because all it does is circulate the 80-degree temperature.
Wow.
But here's the turnaround. Number one, I'm working. Okay. I'm doing what I love doing. And I'm curious, you talk about a seven-figure, and now you're the seven-figure expert, which obviously is in the millions. I would be happy with 6. All right. Preferably the first digit being 9.
Sure. Why not?
But be that as it may, yeah. One of the things that is so fascinating to me is the struggle that we all seem to have around money. And I'm asking this question because I think I have an idea of the answer to this question, and I would love for you to elaborate on this. We don't really understand what money really is. We have misconception of what it is, and it's not that.
Well, yeah, that's a big topic there, Richard. And it is certainly something that I coach people on all the time, whether it's my one-on-one coaching or group coaching. A big part of that is, unpacking people's head trash about money. In fact, that's one of my books. It's called Get Rid of Your Head Trash About Money.
I like that title, especially the phrase head trash.
Head trash. Exactly. That's something I came up with, many years ago to really describe exactly what's going on in so many people's heads, okay, which is a lot of trash. So for the people listening to this program and watching, if you think about what your goals are, right? And it's very important that we understand what our goals are, right? Like you just mentioned it. For example, a lot of people in business want to get to that 6-figure level. So let's say people are at the 6-figure level, they want to get to the 7-figure level. If you're at 7, you want to get to 8 or whatever that might be, right? So if you think about your goals in your business, in your career, maybe you want to get a promotion, right? Maybe you want to, travel more. Maybe you want to take more vacations. Also in your health, maybe you want to lose some weight. Maybe in your relationships, you want to, have that happy marriage, or maybe you want to just find that special someone. So we're not just talking about money. At least I'm not just talking about money. Even though my book's it's called The 7-Figure Expert. So people say, oh, all he cares about is money. And that's not true at all. Because what good is money if you don't have the other things in life? There's a lot of miserable millionaires out there. That's not what I'm espousing. That's not what I'm coaching. It's about being a happy millionaire.
Right.
But more importantly is understanding what your goals are. All right. So I just talked about a few examples. But then what happens is, and this is what people really fail to understand most of the time, is that after you set your goal, so let's just take an example. I want to add an additional $10,000 a month to my business, right? That's a very, common goal for a lot of entrepreneurs. Maybe it's 50,000 a month, maybe it's 100,000 a month. It doesn't really matter what the number is, but let's just take that as a common goal. I want to add an extra $10,000 a month. So right there, we're talking 6 figures a year, right? So that's a lot of money, right? That'll pay for your mortgage, right? You could pay off your mortgage early, maybe 5-10 years early even. And, look at that. And then you could take that money and go on vacations, go on trips, whatever that might be, right? So let's just say that's the goal. But see, for most people, what happens is the very next thing that happens after they set the goal. This is what people don't realize, is that after they set the goal, the very next thing that happens in their mind is, I probably can't do that. Oh, I can't do it. And see, and then it gets even deeper. And this is another thing that I go and help my coaching clients with is I can't do it because. So you have the goal. Everybody talks about goal setting. That's great, but nobody's talking about what happens after the goal. So the goal is I want to make that extra 10,000 a month. Great. But oh no, I don't think I can do it because I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I can't afford it. I don't know who to talk to. I don't have anybody who's supporting me. I don't know. I don't have a coach. I don't have a mentor. I don't know the system to do. I don't know how to put that in place. And, oh, my spouse won't let me do it. And I've got kids. I'm too busy. See all these excuses we have, right? And what is that? That's what I'm calling your head trash. Your head trash is the voice in your head that says, I can't do it because. And then you fill in the blank. And here's what's fascinating about that. You always make yourself right. You always make yourself right. If you tell yourself, or if you're saying, hey, Noah, I want to add an additional 10,000 a month, but I can't do it because I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I can't afford it. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to make yourself right. And that is precisely the thing that's keeping you stuck. And what's fascinating about that is that's precisely the thing that I've been fixing since 1997 for me and my clients. See, I wrote all of these books for me. I wrote all of these books because I had all this head trash. And I didn't have a way. And remember, I had spent all those years reading all those books. I spent an insane amount of time, an insane amount of money. And then after I was starting to make some money, I started paying all these gurus out there. And because they're on social media and they're like, hey, man, look at my plane, look at my jet, look at my helicopter, look at my boat. Aren't I awesome? And it's like, well, yeah, you're awesome. But do you actually have a system, or are you really good at making money for yourself? Have you helped anyone else make any money?
Yeah.
And usually the answer is not so much. So I found, unfortunately, after paying them all this money, they can't teach their way out of a paper bag. Right. So that's why I had to put all of this together. Number one, for myself, and number two, of course, for others, for my clients and for my readers who want a simple, doable, practical system, a step-by-step, fill in the blank, paint by number system that I never got from anyone else, even after I'd paid them all that money. So that's what my books and my coaching and my training represent, a fill in the blank, paint by number system. So you can scale up, whether it's to 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever it is that you want, it's all right there. And it's just a system that works as long as you take action.
I was watching, and I share this regularly. I love watching on Facebook. They call them reels. On YouTube, they call them shorts. Some of them are kind of stupid, but some of them are extremely profound. And this particular one, I wish I knew who this guy was. He's got a great voice, and he does a lot of the voiceovers for many of these. The top 10 reasons why people don't do this, or the top 5 this, or what have you. I know that most people are familiar with the voice if they've watched any of these. But this particular one had to do with this couple who these 3 individuals walked up to the door and knocked on the door wanting to come in. However, the woman who answered the door says, well, my husband's not home right now, but you folks can come on in. He says, no, we can't, not until your husband comes home. Now, each one of them had a different name, and one of them was Love. I believe the second one was Family, and the third one was Money, something like that. And the husband finally comes home, and one of them says, you can invite us in, but you can only invite one of us. And they had to, and they'll give you time. You can think about that. So they go in and they talk about it. They come back out, and the husband, I believe it was the husband who says, okay, we'll invite Love. And all 3 of them walked into the room, to which the husband, wait a minute, you said we could only invite one. Why are all 3 of you coming in? And the answer was because when you invite love into your home, you invite family or community and money. And that's really what you're talking about here. And I think that's where we've sort of lost our way. We're so focused on, and it disturbs me a little bit, maybe you too, that the main focus that I hear on the news in particular, but from other people as well, is the number one focal point, the centerpiece of our civilization is our economy. And I'm sitting here going, you have got to be kidding me. Really? So what you're telling me is, so if the economy is good, everybody else prospers and everything's good. But if it tanks, we're doomed. And yet my father, who was 90, he was 91, almost made it to 92 when he passed, was sharing in an interview that I conducted with my mother and father in 2015, which is now available on the website. He said that he, in particular, of course, my mother did too, he grew up in the Depression. He was born in 1931, folks. Mm-hmm. And, you made the comment on how you knew you were dirt poor. Well, my dad, as he tells it, and of course, if he was born in 31, he was still in single digits when America entered the World War. But he says, we didn't know we were poor. That was just the way it was.
Right.
And in your case, the thought that occurred to me when you said dirt poor, I'm thinking, did you even have dirt? Well, you did. You had a dirt road.
That's right.
I used to look at neighbors around us. Next door was a family, and I make this distinction because my family, we were born and raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, and they were a family of 9 children, not Roman Catholic, Mormons, LDS. Mm-hmm. But we were all good friends. We played together, and I didn't learn about the animosity between the Mormons and the Catholics until I started working at the Christian radio station where, oh yeah, the Mormons believe the Catholics are the whore of Babylon. Oh, really? What the heck is that? I have no clue what that is. And it doesn't matter.
Right.
But I would look at these other families and I would start to measure how we were doing by comparison to how they were doing or what they were doing, and what they had. And it wasn't so much that I thought we weren't doing so great, but over time I began to realize that didn't matter. The things just didn't matter. I know you're familiar with The Secret. I have the DVD at home and I watched it a few times.
Yep.
And in an interview shortly after it came out, I was talking with my guest and they said, well, they didn't do this on purpose, but they left something out. And that which they left out was, you kind of alluded to this in terms of, having a plane and a boat and a big house and all those things. What they left out was that you don't know whether or not that which you want is in your best interest from a universal standpoint, from a metaphysical or spiritual standpoint. Let's talk a little bit about that aspect of it. Yes, it's great if, who wouldn't want to have 7 figures in the bank? See, for me, it would be all of those things that you mentioned, vacation and so forth, not the planes and the boats and stuff, but creating the memories. All right. That's one of these other shorts that I remember seeing about, it was Sylvester Stallone. I don't know. I hope it was his voice, where he's talking about the 4 things that make life worth living. And one of them was, feel free to spend the money. And so you spend $1,000 on a vacation. You're not spending $1,000. You're creating memories, experiences, and so forth. So talk to us about what is the juxtaposition between wanting to have that 7 digits, or even 6. Like I said, I'll be happy with 6 in terms of saying to my wife, hey, let's go out to dinner, or, hey, let's fly over to Phoenix because it's real cheap right now. Let's visit the family for the day. We'll come back, because we've actually done a 1-day turnaround, fly out in the morning and fly back in the evening.
Sure.
let's go up to Yosemite. Let's go up to the redwoods. Let's go visit the friends here. That list, that kind of thing. And not even thinking about what's in the bank account, knowing that there will always be more than enough. So your mind is now freed up, not worried about depleting it, knowing it always will be filled. And I would throw one other thing in here, but I would like to have you expound on that here for a few moments.
Well, you're talking about exactly what I talk about in the book, my book, The Seven-Figure Expert. And by the way, can I talk about, how your listeners can get the book for free, where they can get that?
Absolutely. Please do. Because anytime we can get anything for free, that will help us to then help others. See, that's the other aspect of it. If I've got 7 digits, I want to help others as well. But yes, please tell us how we can get a free copy.
So this is the book here. It's called The Seven-Figure Expert, Your Ultimate Guide to a Life of More Impact, Influence, and Financial Freedom. And you can get this book for free at sevenfigureexpertbook.com. Very easy to remember, sevenfigureexpertbook.com. Now, the book is free. I've covered the cost of the book. We just ask you to cover the shipping. All right. So it's just a shipping that you have to cover. So again, sevenfigureexpertbook.com, and you're going to get some awesome bonuses as well. So while you're waiting for your book to arrive on your doorstep, you can actually log into my NOAH members area, and you're going to get awesome bonuses that go along with the book. So all you have to do is just go to sevenfigureexpertbook.com, get your free copy, and just cover the shipping. So the point is,
who's the good looking guy on the cover?
Well, that's me. And yes, and this is my house. And yes, this was actually taken here at my beautiful home.
Very good.
And, but that's exactly what I talk about. So, you raise something that I talk about all the time, Richard. And I love this topic because people ask me all the time, I do a lot of these podcasts, I do a lot of interviews. And people ask me all the time, well, Noah, what is success? What does success mean to you? What is your definition of success? And of course, that's been debated for hundreds and thousands of years, hasn't it? But what I did, because I'm such a nerd, I'm like the Sheldon Cooper of self-help. I'm just a nerd. I have to have an equation, and my favorite are Venn diagrams. I just love Venn diagrams. And when you read any of my books, you'll see there's just tons of diagrams in there because see, we humans, our mind works in pictures, right? So that's one of the reasons that when you picture things, it just makes it easier to comprehend and really, make them your own. So what you're describing here is something that I've been teaching my coaching clients one-on-one and group coaching for many years, which is what I call the freedom lifestyle equation, the freedom lifestyle equation, or my freedom lifestyle formula. So when you look at what is success and what does success really mean, it really comes down to these 4 elements. And those 4 elements are time, energy, relationships, and money. When you have those 4 elements in abundance, you have to be living what I'm calling a freedom lifestyle. Now, you can call it fulfillment, success, happiness, whatever you want to say, being rich, being wealthy, whatever. It doesn't really matter what you call it. I'm just calling it a freedom lifestyle. The reason I call it that is because the number one thing that people hire me to help them with is to have freedom, right? Because they want financial freedom. You want time freedom. You're just talking about that. You're not like tied to a job. In fact, one of the things that I teach you in the Seven-Figure Expert and in my coaching is how to sever the connection between time and money. Because if you think about it, we're always trading one for the other. When we look at time and money, we're always trading one for the other. The problem is, for most people, their money is chained to their time. So for example, when I worked in corporate America, I, had a job, right? So that's the typical way to make money, isn't it? Right? You walk in and you punch the clock and you say, hey, I work for X number of hours, and then you pay me money for me doing that, right? The problem was there was a very, very low ceiling on how much money I could make because it was tied to my time. And I realized way back then that was not a good trade for me. And this was long before I even had the inkling of being an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what being an entrepreneur meant back then. But I just knew, I'm like, this kind of sucks. This is really kind of lousy, And I was looking at the next 40 years of my life going, this is it? Really? And I was like, I don't like that. So anyway, so now with my 7-Figure Expert formula and my freedom lifestyle formula, you're able to actually separate the connection between time and money, basically meaning you can make money whenever and however you want, and you don't even have to show up. So my clients, for example, I show them exactly how to make money in their sleep. And I know that's, again, another cliche, make money in your sleep. But the fact is, if you put these things in place, you actually can really do that. I mean, I go to bed and I wake up and there's money. I'm like, wow, I didn't even have to work for that. That is pretty great. I mean, now, of course, you have to work. You have to build it. It's not magic. You don't press a button and the money comes in. That's what the marketers, by the way, that's what they want you to believe. The gurus, they say, hey, press a button and money comes in. Really? Where's that button again? It doesn't exist. That's where it is. They're lying to you. They're lying. They lie to us all the time. It's terrible. But anyway, so when you look at those 4 elements, going back to my freedom lifestyle formula, time, energy, relationships, and money. So actually, what's great is every single person listening to this program right now can actually do a self-diagnostic right now and take what I call your freedom temperature. Now, when you're sick, what do? You go to the doctor, right? You say, Doc, I'm not feeling that well. What's the very first thing the doctor does? They take your temperature. Right? The first thing they do is they take your temperature. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm the doctor in this case. You're the patient. And you say, hey, Noah, I want more freedom. And I say, great, let's take it. Let's take your temperature. Now, in this case, you're going to take your own temperature. And I'll show you exactly how to do that. So the point is, the first thing you do is you look at time, your time, right? And you say, how free or stuck do I feel in time? Meaning on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So 1 would be, I have too much to do and too little time. I have no time at all. 10 is, hey, Noah, I got all the time in the world. I got all the time to do whatever the heck I want to do. Great. So you get a 10 in time. So you can rate yourself, take your time temperature. Next, you take your energy temperature, right? Energy, scale of 1 to 10. 1 is, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm frustrated all the time. That's, like the low version of energy. Then, high energy. I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm joyful. I'm surrounded by, things and people that I love, and I'm happy all the time, and I got great energy. That's a 10, right? That's your energy temperature. Next, your relationship temperature. Right. 1 would be, I can't stand the people that I work with. I don't like my home life, don't have the right relationships. And then 10 would be, I have a great home life. I've great customers, great clients. So, your relationships are actually, there's 2 kinds of relationships, your personal and your professional relationships. So you might, maybe doing well in one and maybe not so much in the other, for example. So that's your relationship temperature. And then finally, your money temperature. Money basically is very simple. The way money works is you have some and everyone else has all the rest. So the question is, do you have the money that you want to do the things that you want when you want to do it, or do you not? So 1, no, Noah, I'm really not doing great in money. 10 is, hey, man, I got all the money I want. So when you add those 4 things together, those 4 elements, time, energy, relationships, and money, that is what I call your freedom temperature. So every single person listening to this program can do that right now. It'll take you about 20 seconds, and boom, there's your freedom temperature. Now, as your doctor, here's what I have to say. Just like when you go to the doctor, if you're not feeling well, let's say your temperature is too high or too low. What do? You got to get a treatment, right? And sometimes it's like, oh boy, let's say you have a temperature of 104. Oh man, we got to get to the ICU. Well, in this case, if your freedom temperature is too low, let's say it's 25 or below, anything that's 25 or below, we got to get you to the ICU. So you got to do something. You know what I mean? So you either get my book, go to 7figureexpertbook.com. You can also go to breakthroughwithnoah.com. That's easy to remember. Breakthroughwithnoah.com. I'm known as the Breakthrough Coach. So you can go to breakthroughwithnoah.com, watch a video training there. It's free, and just watch that video. And then you can actually book a complimentary breakthrough consultation with me or one of my coaches right there at breakthroughwithnoah.com, and just book a call and just answer a few questions. And we can show you how you can literally install this for your business, for your life. So you can actually, like my clients do, they very, very frequently double or triple, their business in a very, very short amount of time. Why? Because it's a system that anybody can follow.
31.
31 is your temperature. That's pretty darn good. All right. So you're doing well. Very nice. Nicely done.
Obviously,
okay, well, there you go.
The high score would be 40. And
that's the perfect score. Yeah.
I would venture very few, if any, actually hit 40.
No, nobody really gets a 40. No.
now, what about you though? What about you? Do you feel where you are today?
I'm at a 37. So that's 37.
Okay. That's darn good. Yeah, pretty absolutely.
Good. Yeah. So, nobody's perfect. I always got a little tweaks here and there, but it's pretty darn good. I mean, let's face it, I started at probably a 4. So, not bad, right?
Not bad. So let me ask you, in that regard, we get a lot of messages. I observed two messages that were counter. The first message was, and of course, those who came over here in the late early 1900s or through Ellis Island, had, as I put it, they had it on the tip of their tongue that this is the land of opportunity. Now, if you take a look at many of the businesses, the mom and pop shops that opened back then in the early 1900s, most of them probably aren't in business anymore today. But there are some that went on to become global corporations still in business today.
Right.
All right. So that's the first message that we've got. This is the land of opportunity, and how much more it is the land of opportunity for those of us who were born here, but we don't get that message imprinted on us like the immigrants did coming across the Atlantic. Okay. But here's the other message. If you make too much, we're going to take a lot from you, i.e. taxes. Now, we're encouraging people, make sure you pay your taxes because it will not bode well for you if you do not.
Right.
And yes, I understand that the rules, the laws that have been set up over the decades through the institution we call the IRS are there. And that one individual in particular who says that, they say he only paid $750 in taxes one year and yet is supposedly a billionaire. He says, I just used the rules that are there. I just used the laws that were there. I didn't cheat. I just took advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And my perspective on that is, okay, all right, you have done nothing illegal. But what about unethical and immoral? Just because there's a law that says you can, does that mean you should? Because you're a part of this community. And I'm not castigating anybody here. I'm trying to present these messages that we are constantly inundated with. That's and they're, for example, the whole thing with the 1%ers, for example, in this country today, and people are just up in arms that they're not paying their fair share, which they may or may not be, but they're only using the rules and the laws that are in place. They're just taking advantage of what's there. Okay. So if I don't know the rules, I don't know the laws, but I do know that when I'm filling out my form every year, oh, I made $1 million this year and I got to pay $250,000. All right. Some would say, yeah, well, that's not fair. You have to give them a quarter of what you earned in the year. I said, yeah, but I got to keep 3/4 of what I earned. Plus, I got to do what I love. I got to help other people. I got to go here and there. I have this and that. And I mean, if you go down that laundry list, the bottom line is being grateful. Not necessarily for all of the toys you have, but for the opportunities that you have and that you've made for others. It's one of the things that and again, this is another one of those messages, corporations that aren't paying their fair share and are not filtering that abundance down to the people who actually made the billions for that corporation, the people at the bottom who do the work, who provide and make the product or provide the service. All right. So let's just leave it at that and say, okay, it's the land of opportunity. And I don't care what, all that other stuff. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go all out, full bore, and I'm going to do my thing and I'll make whatever I make and I'll pay whatever is required of me to pay. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God's. And be grateful for what I have. I would take it that you deal with that mindset or frame of mind, and not the latter one that I just mentioned, but that dichotomy, the give and take, and so forth, in the minds of people that you work with, and that's maybe one of the first hurdles that you have to get them over is letting go of that, because yes, this is the land of opportunity, but you have to be about your life's purpose. That's at the top of the list, as it were.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know what their purpose is, just like I didn't all those years ago. And so, that's definitely one of the things that I help people to discover is what is their purpose. And, what's funny about that is it's not enough to just know your purpose. That's the first step for many
Mhm.
people is, well, why am I here? What is my purpose? But, when we talk about becoming a seven-figure expert or even a six-figure expert, it really is about helping other people to realize what the value is that they're bringing to their situation, right? So just because you're great at something, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We have
Mhm.
to make sure that we are packaging it properly so that other people benefit from it. So,
Mhm.
for example, with my books, yeah, I love writing books. I've written 25 books. That's great. But who cares, right? I mean, if it doesn't do anybody any good, then
Yeah.
what's the point of that? So, I'm always focused on what is the value that you're bringing? And then, yeah, I mean, a lot of times we do get to help people, increase their fees and things like that. Like one client I was working with, he increased his business 800% in just 12 weeks as a
Wow.
result of, me helping him just putting these things in place. Another one of my clients tripled her investment in the first 2 weeks after working with me. So anyway, I mean, that's what being a seven-figure expert is all about, in my opinion. That's what my books, that's what my coaching is all about. And it's really a lot of fun. And I love people getting results when they take action and when they put this in place. It's really, really a lot of fun.
I've talked earlier about spending some time going within and listening to that still small voice. How important is that in this particular process, but just in general in life, to wanting to go after the things that are truly deep down important to you? And if it is these four elements of time, energy, relationships, and money, okay, how important is that inner life?
Oh, I think it's absolutely crucial. And what's funny is this is something again that I talk about all the time with my clients isn't it interesting that it's a still small voice? And because what's in your head is a loud voice, it's a
Yeah.
loud, obnoxious voice.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning you can't do it. Who's going to listen to you? Who are you to talk? Nobody's going to pay any attention to you. That's a loud, obnoxious voice. And that's why I call you your head trash, the bully in your head. It's a bully. But that still small voice is, very quiet. And so it takes meditation, it takes yoga, it takes journaling,
Hmm.
to get back in touch with that still small voice because that voice in our head is usually very loud and obnoxious, whereas the still small voice comes from your heart, which can be very quiet and hard to listen to sometimes, especially with all the noise out there. So
Yeah.
I think it's very crucial.
There's a Bible passage where Jesus is telling his followers, what the heck are you worried about? Do you see the birds? Do you see the flowers on the ground? The da 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 da. And he goes on that. Let tomorrow worry about tomorrow.
Right.
So we can have these desires, shall we call them? And again, I honestly do believe that it needs to be heartfelt. It needs to be at the core of your being, so to speak, and hopefully you find your life's purpose. How do you help people to do that? How do you help them to identify what am I supposed to be doing with my life?
Well, using those methods that I already mentioned,
Hmm.
meditation is a
Hmm.
very, very important one. You want to do that. I feel the best time to do that is in the mornings before the crush of the day happens to you. We just get emails and social media and everything. I really feel meditation is very important first thing. And of course, when you're going to bed, a great meditation that anybody can do right now, and you mentioned this a moment ago, is a gratitude meditation. You want to
Mm.
focus on what you have that you are grateful for. Now, that's not to say that you don't want more, right? We all want more, right? If you have six figures, you want seven. If you want seven, you want eight. I mean, so that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's very crucial to be grateful for what we already have,
Hmm.
because the more that you're grateful for what you have, the more that we are open to receive more. So that's something that's very, very important for people to do, along with journaling and yoga and all those things that really do get us back in touch with that still small voice within.
And before we wrap things up here on this particular edition of Tell Me Your Story with you, Dr. Noah St. John, what about? I'm trying to put this formulate the words for this. What about the trusting of the universe. There was a beautiful story. I don't know if I shared this with you before or not, and I'll make it real brief here. Two guys going out to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Bob and Fred. Bob pays each time, always has exactly the right amount. Third meal, the dinner, Fred says, hey, first of all, thank you so much. I am very grateful for the fact that, last three times we've gone out, you've picked up the tab. I just want to know, how is it you knew exactly how much to have in your pocket? So he tells him the story of cleaning his garage, finding this dusty old lamp, dusting it off. Out comes a genie. You get one wish. You can't wish for more wishes. Can I get back to you? Sure. Comes back to him, says, I want to have what I need when I need it to take care of the things that come up. And that's how I'm able to know exactly how much. That's why I always have exactly the right amount each time we go out. And someone told me that mindset is what's holding me back, for example, from hitting that 7 figures, that I'm content with. I'm satisfied with the fact that the universe is providing, that I'm doing my best to let tomorrow worry about tomorrow. And when I think about this, my wife and I have lived here in Santa Barbara. She's a native Santa Barbaran for 18 years. 18 years. And this is no criticism to my employer, okay? So don't get me wrong. But I have not had a raise in 16 years. And yet, I am living in one of the most expensive places, if not in the country, the world. I'm still here, which means the universe has been doing a hell of a great job. And at the same time, like I said, I would love to have more digits in front of that decimal point. What are your thoughts in that regard? Is that a mindset that, in my case, let's just keep me, I'll just keep me as the example. If I really want 7 figures in my bank account, is that mindset, is that story that I have taken on, being content and satisfied, interfering with the possibility of having 7 figures or 6 or 5?
First of all, anyone that is feeling like you needs to go to breakthroughwithnoah.com, right? And book a breakthrough consultation with me like ASAP.
Okay.
I am talking ICU right now. Go to breakthroughwithnoah.com and book that session. And secondly, I think it's great that you are grateful. That's one of the things that I admire about my wife. She is the happiest person I ever met. That's one of the reasons I married her. She's also very beautiful and very smart, but she is just a happy person, and I am not a naturally happy person. I shared my story of how I grew up. So I grew up with that worry, that fear, that doubt that, oh, I can't do it, all that head trash and so forth. Why do you think I wrote all these books?
Mm-hmm.
And so the point is that I understand the work it takes for some people, including myself, to really have that attitude of gratitude. And, for me, it's a conscious effort. For others, it's more natural. So, I mean, I think it's great, but I also feel that, there is that balance of, yes, I'm very grateful for what I have, but hey, you know what? It's okay that I want more. And if you do want more, you have to put it in place. You have to have a system. Otherwise, I always use the house analogy. It's like you're trying to build a house just by slapping boards together. You really don't have a plan. You don't have a blueprint, and really you don't have a guide. So I'm like an architect that's helped thousands of people build their dream home. What the difference is that I don't tell people what kind of house they should have. They come to me and they say, hey, Noah, this is the kind of house I want. And I say, great, here's how we can do it. Here's how we can build it. Let's do it. And, that's what I help them do. So I don't tell anybody how much money they should be making or how much they should want. That's up to each individual person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for me to say. I don't feel it's for anybody to say. But at the same time, I do help people to reach their dreams, their goals, 5, 10 times faster than working on their own. Why? Because we have a system that works every single time.
Well, I would say in my defense that at the very least, I am not coming from a position of lack.
Right.
All right. Whereas the majority of people, I would think, who are living paycheck to paycheck and so forth, they're coming from that position of, I don't have enough.
That's right.
And when people, for example, complain about the gas prices, I said, wait a minute, hold on. Stop complaining. You have a choice, as we talk about on this program, giving people choices and knowledge of those choices. Well, let me drop some knowledge on you. regardless of whether it's a gas, a loaf of bread, or anything else, or a service, you can choose to pay it or not. End of story. That's it. Either pay it or don't pay it. And if you want to get from point A to point B, then you're probably going to pay it. And be grateful that you were able to pay it so that you can get from point A to point B. And that might help to dissipate a lot of the frustrations over. I mean, hell, I would love to see $3 a gallon gas. When I first started driving back in 1998, and I still remember this because I kept a regular log every time I filled up, I'd write down the price of the gallon of gas, and then how many gallons and how much the total was. Do you know that in 1998, I was driving a Chevy Metro and it was 89 cents a gallon? Okay, we're not going back to what, the 40s or the 50s where it was 25, 89 cents. And it was shortly after I got the Metro that the price started to go up over above $1. And I'm thinking, did they find out that I got a Metro and they want to get more money out of me? And now, it's hitting every so often $4.5, $5 a gallon. And hey, I'm lucky that I've got the income and the wherewithal that I can still fill up the tank and get from point A to point B. It's an amazing thing, the internal combustion engine, and how it's come a long way in terms of transportation, in terms of miles per gallon, in terms of the fuel efficiency, emissions, the luxury. I mean, I love the rear camera on my vehicle today, the Volkswagen that I have, that I can, when I back up, see, I never used to parallel park, but with that camera, I now parallel park. I have the confidence now to parallel park. I was a horrible parallel parker looking over my shoulder and all of that stuff. So I think that that's one of the other things too, is it doesn't mean that we can't have more. We certainly can, but we do need to be grateful for what we've given. And I am very grateful that you, Dr. Noah St. John, who I better ask this question, what kind of a doctor are you? If I have a pain in my back or in my wallet?
Oh, I'm more of the wallet, but also your soul. I have a PhD in pastoral counseling psychology. So for people who have a pain in their soul and or their wallet, they come to me.
Well, we hope they will, and pick up a free copy, ladies and gentlemen, of 7-Figure Life: How to Achieve More Wealth and Happiness Than You Ever Thought Possible. We hope that you'll get a copy of his book. Go to the websites that have been mentioned here on Tell Me Your Story. In terms of the book, a free copy, 7figureexpertbook.com. That's 7figureexpertbook.com. And also NoahStJohn.com. That's his website where he's got all kinds of great stuff. And then the free consultation website. Give that one to us again.
BreakthroughWithNoah.com. Very easy to remember. Just remember that I'm the breakthrough coach. BreakthroughWithNoah.com. And yep, just book your free consultation right there at BreakthroughWithNoah.com.
All right. We encourage folks to do that. I want to thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program. And as before, I'm going to ask you 3 questions that I ask all of my guests and wrap things up here with this particular edition of Tell Me Your Story. We look forward to, do you have book 26 in the works at all?
No.
Not
just
yet.
25. 25 is a nice round number.
I like it.
Quarter century. So we're going to pause there for a few minutes, but who knows? Might come out with a couple more.
Yeah, that's 2 bits. I don't know how they came up with that one, but it's 2 bits.
There you go.
All right. Well, I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story: New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. That's our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. And then we're here Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. and all of those times following the newscast right here. And then we podcast at those times. We also stream the live programs or the programs at those times. And then podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. We hope you'll subscribe and then select notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be able to tune in and listen in and glean all the good stuff that we like to provide. I'd like to think of it as a gold mine, but you've got to do the panning. I just provide the stream for you to get your a little pan in there. I don't know anything about panning for gold, but there you go. We also hope that you can support us financially if you can. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And put in the email address of richard@richarddugan.com when they ask, to whom are you sending this to? richard@richarddugan.com. And as we've already spoken of in this program today, spend some time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, and spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm space, listening to that still small voice. With all of that, we now move to those three final questions for a very special guest on his third appearance on this program, and we're very grateful for that. The first of those three questions is, who is Noah St. John?
Author, husband, stepfather, coach, mentor, keynote speaker, and grateful guy.
What gets you up in the morning?
My mission to help teach people how to have more time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, and live a freedom lifestyle.
And finally, what was your best day?
That's an easy one. April 30th, 2011, when I married my beautiful wife, Babette. I told her I'd be the happiest bridegroom you ever saw, and I sure was. That was the best day of my life.
And I will share with our listeners on this program that my wife and I, who did have a common law ceremony in 2002 back in Phoenix, we are going to make it official on the 30th of June and just kind of seal it, as it were. So we're very excited about that. So just to share that with our listeners. Once again, Dr. Noah St. John, thank you so much for all of this great information. And we will be posting the websites, the three of them, and we will encourage people to go to your website, especially to get that free copy.
Sounds great.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to law. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.